Hi everyone, it's Sonia, and today I am bringing you my June wrap-up in the book sense and in the video everyday sense. I guess I'll start with my books because I've got a lot to say about the month business. So, the first book that I finished in June was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Goodreads says I gave it a 3, but I think in my video I said like a 4, 3.54 stars. Somewhere there. It's accurate. I really enjoyed it. So the premise of this book, I've mentioned in about 8 videos thus far, is that we have our character Kel, who's able to travel between parallel worlds with the magic that he has been bestowed, and all these worlds are anchored around one city called London, which has different aspects of magic in each layers of it. So there's 3 Londons: Grey London, which is our world; Red London, Kel's world; and White London, which is the bad one, I guess. He brings back a little something across the worlds that causes a lot of havoc. I enjoyed this book well enough. I mean, I did not want to read it. I really did want to read it. The premise of the fantasy of it was interesting, but there was so much literally this entire book was world building, and I just got a little bit bored because there wasn't much action. And I read a couple of reviews that's on Goodreads before I got into this that said like the story, the baseline story of it and the conflict was very, very sparse to the point that it wasn't interesting, and I wouldn't exactly disagree with that. The baseline like conflict is just a little drab, but the world is fascinating in itself, and because it's 3 different worlds, the premise of it is simple but complex as well, and I found that really interesting. So lots of world building, a little bit boring, but the world is fascinating itself, so I liked it. So the next book I read in June is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. I give this book a 5 out of 5. The premise of this is that we have 2 characters, Dimple and Rishi. Dimple is a strong-headed feminist who's going into computer science, does not want to get married, wants to live the free life of, the American dream, and also balance the side and the fact that she's actually Indian. So balancing her home life of having parents who come from a different country, whereas growing up as a brown girl in America is kind of her main conflict, alongside entering a field that is predominantly male. Then we have Rishi, who is an artist, soft-hearted teddy bear, honestly, and considers carrying on his family legacy, family traditions, and honors to be of great importance to him. And so when his parents bring him a proposal of an arranged marriage to Dimple, he is stoked. So they both end up attending InsomniaCon, and chaos ensues, to put it simply. I loved it. I have literally never related to a book more. I've said this exact same sentence in every video that I've talked about this book, but honestly, it needs to be reiterated. I now understand what it means when people say, that character is me. Because both Dimple and Rishi are me. Yes. Thank you, Sandhya Menon, for writing something this beautiful, this heartwarming, and this adorable. I love both Dimple and Rishi, and this was cute. This was reading a Bollywood movie in text format. Good shit. Next book that I finished, and there is a full review for this one, kind of a chit-chat though, was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. I loved this book. It was very, very lighthearted. It follows our main character Molly, who's Jewish, and has a twin sister who's lesbian. In general, the entire cast of characters in this book are just diverse in race, experience, gender, sexuality, like everything is diverse, and I feel #blessed to have read this. Great experience reading this. I genuinely loved it. I will link down my full review below because I don't think I need to talk more about it. And I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in June was Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I always get their last names mixed up, so I gotta read it. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars, although Goodreads says 5 because I was like It was a 5-book, but there were still 4 elements in it. Actually, I'm going to talk about both Illuminae and Gemina that I did not read consecutively, but I read them both this month. Both genuinely enjoyable, but there were some issues with it, and I'm going to get a little bit into it. So, I feel like the stories kind of were very, very, very similar. Although they exist in succession to each other within the narrative, basically what happens is kind of similar. Again, we have 80% similar characters, main characters. We have our spunky girl and our lovesick boy, although Nick in Gemina was a bit of a bad boy, whereas what's-his-face in this one was a bit more of a hopeless romantic, like a good Samaritan, yada yada. And high-key, there were elements that were misogynistic to a T. Both Katie and what's-her-face, Hannah, were super archetypical. You have your manic pixie dream girl in Katie with the pink hair and the attitude, and she's a computer scientist and a hacker and just, yeah. And then Hannah is your classic rebel princess, you know, daddy's little girl, and she's learned how to fight, so she's got that edge on her, and just everyone's in love with her. And she has the perfect little boyfriend, but she's also flirting with the bad boy. Like, let's talk about every single character in this book falls into an archetype. Even the guys weren't given any kind of characterization beyond, you know, bad boy Nick comes from a rebel family, and then you have your lovesick soldier. Yeah, like, none of the 4 characters actually had anything beyond. But despite my issues with, like, the low-key misogyny in the, you know, commentary of, like, oh, yeah, send me a picture of your girlfriend, I want to jack off to it, like, no, I don't take that. Despite all of that, the story is exceptionally executed. I thought that because everything was in these Docet, like, document folder files thing, transcripts without any kind of description, I thought this was going to be a really detached narrative. And yes, I did not cry when, you know, twists happened, but I was sucked in. These are 600-page books, and I finished them in a day. That doesn't happen that often with me. 2 days for 600-page books, average. 1 day, holy shit, big achievement. So, really, really great books, but the characters weren't all that to me. I still recommend everyone read this, because these are so unique in their premise, and so unique in their execution, and graphic design nerd in me is going apeshit. Actually, there were a couple pages in this book where we have conversations on black pages, and I can't read that shit, even when it is in person. On camera, I'm sure you can't see it, but even in person, I was like, huh, what the hell? Fix that. Great books, though. After spending like 8 minutes talking about Gemina and Illuminae, we're going on to the next book I finished. So, the next book that I read in June was History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, and I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I actually thought when I first started reading it that this wasn't gonna get more than 3 stars, because it was very slow for me to get through, but you hit a certain point in the book where it just kicks you in the ass, and you're like, oh shit. And that was me. So the premise of this book is that we're following our main character, Griffin, who's making his inner monologue. This entire book is an inner monologue to his dead ex-boyfriend, Theo, who just recently died. That's where we start off in the book. And it's about Griffin trying to find some kind of closure with the loss. He thought that he was going to end up back with Theo despite the fact that they broke up, but now there was the entire future that he had planned out for himself with Theo is gone off course. And of course, the only person that understands this experience of being with Theo and has that, the grief that they share is similar. Of course, the family is grieving, but it's a different kind of grief of loss of a family member as opposed to loss of a romantic love interest. And so Griffin and Jackson, who was Theo's boyfriend at the time, kind of build an unlikely friendship and bond and, you know, learn to grieve and move on from that kind of loss. And this book, we have two most definitely gay characters, one explicitly bisexual character, and one character was not explicitly mentioned if he was bi or gay or not, or at least I don't remember, but it's either or. I loved the ending of this book. Like, the ending just kind of flipped shit on your head, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck? The entire first half where I was like, this is painful, kind of took on a new sort of meaning after you get to this certain kicker in the book, and like everything just kind of opens up in your mind, and like the closed off experience that you have through this tunnel vision that Griffin gives you from his narration expands because of what you read at that turning point. And it was so beautiful to get to that point. Like, I was about to hate this book, but now I cannot imagine ever saying that I hated this book. It was glorious, beautiful, lovely, life-changing, unimaginably perceptive and deep, and just an extraordinary reading experience altogether. The next book that I read in June was Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton, and I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. We're following kind of like a Western-themed thingamajigger set in the Middle East with a lot of fantastical elements that stem from Middle Eastern folklore and mythology. And I would say, based on my reading and my very limited knowledge and limited resource access to this, that there were hints of Native American culture as well. Of course, Native American culture isn't that accessible because of their understandably unwillingness to share culture, because it's been appropriated and abused and taken from them without any kind of permission. So understandably, there are less resources and access to their culture, folklore, heritage. But I could tell from the very dregs that I could find in this book that it was there, and I did not like the way it was represented. One primary example is a mention of skinwalkers. That, I don't know if it exists in Middle Eastern culture. I've taken a few courses in Middle Eastern art history, and there's very limited crossover with mythology, but I do not think skinwalkers exist in Middle Eastern culture. So the things that this book does in terms of meshing together Native American and Middle Eastern culture, while it is an innovative effort, I think I would take it as a bit of an insult, especially where I don't think she had permission to take from Native American culture or have that kind of authority to blend two completely different cultures. I don't know what similarity our author saw in this union, but it did not seem right. I will say, though, that the representation, our main character is brown. Amani Al-Hiza is brown, and I like that. The main romance is interracial, and I like that. So although I was very iffy on how the world building was executed, I did appreciate that there certainly was diversity and some kind of nuance and understanding to at least the Middle Eastern aspects of it. And there are readers that claim that this is like a Western element to it. I saw none of that. None of that. Like, you need to understand that gunpowder and guns and ammunition come from 3 empires. The Safavid Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Mughal Empire. And all 3 of those come from the Middle East. So claiming that this is any kind of Western influence to it, I don't see it. I don't see any of it. Like, maybe it's just the use of guns. Like, bro, the East and the Middle East had way more to do with it than this kind of Western manifest destiny nonsense ever had. Also, check me if I'm overstepping my bounds here. I'm not Middle Eastern, but I've studied enough, and I'm from India, where the Mughal Empire is pretty prominent. So I would say that I have some sort of experience in speaking with this. So that's all I'm going to say about how much I okayed this book. I'm still going to read the next one. I still am, because I am interested, although it's going to be with a very wary and very, very critical eye that the next book is going to be approached. Also, what the fuck is that cover change? I don't get it. I don't get it. Is the girl on the cover white when it's explicitly stated that our main character is brown with blue eyes? Don't do that to me. Don't do that. These covers are exceptional. This is beautiful. Those new covers can burn. Moving on. Next book that I read in June was the third book in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which is Library of Souls, and this is by Ransom Riggs, a trilogy. This was the conclusion to the trilogy. An overall arching sense, this series was wonderful and fascinating and creepy and weird and lovely, but the ending to this book was big time cop-out, I thought. I did not like the way this whatever new twist was introduced at the very, very end. Everything before that, exceptional. Really, really exceptional. I love this book, and I love the premise of it and the accompanying photos. Genius premise, genius book series. That ending was a big time cop-out. So the last book that I read in June was Our Dark Duet by V.E. Schwab, and this is the second book and the conclusion to the duology of Monsters of Verity. The first book being The Savage Song, and then followed up by this book. I inhaled this book. Inhaled it. Okay, before I get into reviewing it, let me give you a brief description of what this is about. So, we're situated in a city called Verity, in post-apocalyptic, what I'm guessing is America, and we're following two main characters, Kate, who is the daughter of kind of a mob boss, and August, who is the son of the Resistance. And in this world, monsters take physical form and manifest from evil acts that are committed by... And so we have our two characters from opposite sides of the conflict who are forced together through strange circumstances and have to fight their way out of a brewing war. So I really, really love this series. I've hated Dystopia, but these books are an exception to that statement, other than Hunger Games. They were fantastic. This book does some really interesting commentary on the gray area of human violence and human acts of crime. There's some really interesting premise in how, like, darkness manifests from small acts to massive, massive catastrophes. It's really, really fascinating how the author kind of talks about that through the manifestation of monsters and through the morality of the characters in this book. It is really great. There were some, I think at least, subtle jabs at police brutality as well, which had me fist pumping all the way through because, yes, call that shit out. It was great, but the ending of the series broke my soul, and I blame that for my week-long absence in June. And that concludes my June wrap-up and goes into my June wrap-up of my video every day. I'm just gonna give you like a week-by-week overview. First week, I was like, hell yeah, pre-filming like 3 videos at a time, like I was in it. Second week, still in the mood, but I was running out of ideas. Third week, I was getting a wee bit annoyed, filming everything last minute and uploading it last minute as well, which is what led to a 4th week of annoyance and me realizing that if I'm getting annoyed with filming videos, I really need to stop, because that just means that I'm going to start hating it. So I gave myself the week off. I know that kind of defeats the purpose of a video every day in the month of June, which is Pride Month and Ramzan. I don't know, I just didn't do good. Didn't do well. A video every day is a shit ton of work. But I think from this experience, I know that I can at least upload 1 to 2 videos every week without a problem if I can do a video every day for 3 weeks straight. It's there. I have the ability to do that. So there's no excuse for me to stop uploading anymore. Unless, you know, school starts, and then we'll see about that. There's 2 more months before that happens. So this was a good learning experience, kind of exhausting, but I've taken my time off and I'm ready to, like, dive right back in. I hope you enjoyed seeing my face for 3 weeks straight. It's gonna be a lot less frequent now, but hopefully the videos will be better quality and better planned. Yeah, this has been a marathon of a video. I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye!